Welcome to Failed Forward, a podcast for professionals who are wondering, how the hell did I get here?
Join your host, Rachel Durkan, and me, Donna Miller, as we discuss the messy, bumpy, and often unattractive journey to success.
After all, if it isn't hard to do, is it really worth doing? Hello and welcome to Failed Forward, the podcast for those of us wondering, how the hell did I get here? My name is Rachel Durkan. I'm with Paradigm Marketing and Design. We are a web marketing, branding, and sales enablement agency that specializes in working with clients with a complex sale. So if you have a sales team and you want them to close more deals and have more qualified meetings, we can help you build a marketing to sales infrastructure that will make that happen. And I am joined every week by my lovely and talented co-host, Donna Miller. Donna, tell our folks what you do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Failed Forward. So I'm Donna Miller. I am founder of C3 Workplace and Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting, where for the last 30 years, I've had the great good fortune, most of the time, to help companies accelerate their growth. And we do that by providing advisory and implementation services to support your finance, your operations, and your biz dev. So clients are coming to us because they know that we're going to build efficient integrated systems that they can execute on, or we can help them execute on. But really, what I am trying to do, and we as an organization do, is help companies build organizations that run and grow without them involved in every little detail. And that's called self-scaling. And if that's something you want to do, we'd be happy to talk. And we are joined in this episode by the fantastic April Shprintz. April, tell our audience what you do and how fabulous you are before we get into the other side of it.
I don't know how fabulous I am, but I absolutely
stop
love
it.
what I do. I am a business accelerator and sales expert. And what I mean by that is I help small to medium-sized businesses scale. And more recently have had a lot of fun helping entrepreneurs who've already reached that big goal, usually a monetary or size goal, figure out what's next and stepping into who they're really meant to be. Because sometimes we accomplish everything in the world we thought we wanted and find ourselves asking, is that all there is? And it absolutely is not. And I love to help folks figure that out.
Awesome.
I hear so many people that struggle with that. They accomplished it and they're like, oh crap.
Now
Now what
what?
do I do? Yeah.
Well, I think also, and I don't want to get too far off topic, but I think it is true that when you achieve that goal, it doesn't always look exactly like you thought it was going to. So now, is that all there is?
So April, before we started recording, you were telling us, you were talking about failures because this podcast is called Failed Forward. And you were telling us you've had, I mean, like us, that's what I love about you. You're like, yeah, I've had a billion failures. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too, sister. So tell me about, you said there was one big one and you're like, oh, I'm ready to talk about this. Tell me about it.
So the biggest failure that I had that surprises people, because my business now is 8 years old and it seems to have been incredibly successful. And I think what determines success in a business is if you keep at it, because rarely are we super successful right in the beginning. And I had come off of having an amazing career in the sales and startup world. I had been making seven figures and just assumed I would step into being an entrepreneur just flawlessly, seamlessly. It's like the most hilarious thing. It's like those of us who have had children and envision ourselves as this perfect mother that we saw everyone else as. And then you get home and you're like, this is not what I thought it would be.
Why are they so annoying? That just me.
Supposed to love them.
Yeah,
So
we do.
for me, I started my company and I didn't know what to do. And the one area where I feel like I really failed is I just started throwing money at things instead of really understanding what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it. And candidly, Rachel, getting on the phone and just getting clients. I had clients from my former industry say, we don't care what you're doing, we'll buy it. So just let us know. And I had huge imposter syndrome of I've got to prove myself before I can call those people, because I really found myself when I was selling me instead of a system or a software or a product, I really felt like, oh, this has to be so much better before I can go out into the world. And candidly, I spun my wheels, did a lot of what I love to call hamster work, And that is where you're working and you're doing things. So you feel good about that, but you're not doing the right things. And so I was, focusing on building this really snazzy website and what kind of brochures was I going to have and how much could I pay some marketing firms to feel like I was working, instead of just getting out there and saying, hey, what do you need? How can I help?
Mm-hmm.
And really building my business. And I was super fortunate because I got pulled out of that failure by a person who needed a lot of help and said, hey, I know someone who can help you. Your company's failing. I know she's turned around failing divisions in companies. Let me put you in touch with her. And
Mm-hmm.
candidly, had that not happened, I don't know how long I would have spun my wheels. I think I could have
Mm-hmm.
spent another
You were
six
like, oh
months.
my God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And you had no idea. So let me ask you a question. When you started your business, what was the premise of the business?
So interestingly, I thought I was going to teach people how to sell and probably how to speak. And I say probably because I'd been a news anchor, I'd done a lot of public speaking for the businesses I was in, and I thought this will be good. I'll train people on this. But
Mm-hmm.
I made a big mistake that I see a lot of people making, which is I decided what I was going to sell and then went off in the corner
I
and like
knew
started
this.
creating it instead of talking to the people who I could help and asking
Mm-hmm.
them what they actually needed.
I've seen that so much in I've worked with other small businesses like that, and I'll say, well, what's your revenue stream? Like, what is your value proposition? Like, what are we actually trying to sell? And they can't answer what the revenue stream is going to be.
Mhm.
There's a problem.
Right.
So you mentioned that hamster wheel. I
Mhm.
love that.
Yeah.
Talk about
Talk to us about that. I'd like to hear more about, and I think sometimes it's a form of procrastination that we do the things we shouldn't be doing.
we
So
Oh, yeah.
feel busy. We feel like
yeah,
we're
talk
doing
to us a little bit
output.
about that busy hamster wheel.
Oh, yeah. So I call it hamster work because when you see
Hamster
a
work.
hamster on a wheel, man, they feel good about what they're doing. But you objectively are like, you're not getting anywhere. You
Yeah.
can run all you want there, bro. So
So
what
I
I
should go on my
find,
treadmill after this. Yeah.
right? Well, you're going for calorie burn. You have enough.
Yeah. Okay. As
We're
long as
good.
we've got a goal, we're good. Yeah.
But what I find is, and you mentioned it, Donna, as procrastination, I call it resistance because I think it's
Mhm.
resistance to us stepping into what we really want to do. And the bigger the thing we're going to do, the more we unconsciously can tell we're going to level up and make an impact, the more resistance we have because we're afraid. And every time we get to the next level, we have a whole new level of fear to work through.
Mhm.
And so I know now for me, if I start coming up with a lot of things that I need to do that are productive, but really aren't moving the needle forward, I am resisting what I want to step into. And I call myself
Mhm.
out on it and I start to do the thing that I'm like, what are
That's
you the most
amazing.
afraid to do right now? And that
Mhm.
becomes my next task on my list.
I think that's so important. I think we all, Donna and I were just talking on another podcast about how you feel your value is in your productivity, like what your
Mhm,
output is. And if you're doing the right work, you don't always get the output for a long time.
mhm,
And that is such a good lesson. I love that hamster work concept because you could be doing a ton of work and it's not and maybe you're even bringing in money with this work, but it's
mhm.
not sustainable in the long term. So it's reactionary and not proactive. So you mentioned like you call yourself out on it, but what advice would you give to
Yeah.
people like to,
How do people do that?
yeah.
That's that's a superpower. And you say that in
Oh, it's so
a
easy.
nonchalant kind of way. But that's really hard for a lot of us. So talk to
Mhm.
us about, and you're working with clients, helping them to accomplish that as well. So talk to us a little bit about how we can be better at that.
So I think all of us need to tap into whatever resources we have available to us because as entrepreneurs that can be lonely and you don't
Mm.
have always that community to hold you accountable, the people to help you push yourself and move yourself forward. Some of us have the ability to hire folks who can help us do that and that's fantastic. Some of us are at the point where we're doing absolutely everything in our business because we can't hire anyone. And that's where community becomes really important. Who are the people that you already know, like, and trust, who will tell you the truth about what you're doing? It's like your girlfriend who will say, yes, that outfit is unflattering. It
Mhm.
is like your
Yes, your ass looks big.
right?
But is that a
And
good thing these
it
days?
either
I don't
is or isn't the outfit. I don't know, but they'll tell you the truth. And, or, that really good friend who's like, hey, this person that you want to pursue having a partnership with is not at your level, whether that's personal or
Mhm.
business wise. So it can be something where if it's not your skill to call yourself out, but the thing is, most of us have that skill. Most of us wonder, am I doing the right thing? And if you
Mhm.
wonder, you're not. That's why you're asking.
And if
It's
you're
like
on
if
that
we
hamster
have
wheel,
to.
you've got to step off for a day. I've always said my best aha moments come when I've been on vacation
Oh,
or
yeah.
unplugged, because when you're on it, you don't have time to think about, should I be doing this? 'Cause you're just doing it. And so maybe you need to, and I remember when I started my business, and I'm sure I've been on many a hamster wheels. I I never felt like I had time to stop to think if it
Mhm.
was the right thing to do. And so stepping away is like to me, a good cheat. I'm going to go away for 2 days, and I'm going
Mhm.
to sit in silence and think if this makes sense.
That's huge. Well, and it also, to the point that Donna made earlier, if you can't do that in your business, you don't have a business. You're self-employed.
Mm,
Talk to me
which
about the
is
difference between,
okay, but it's a decision.
uh-huh.
Hmm.
Talk to me about the difference between a business and self-employed, just
So
for our
I
audience.
don't think many entrepreneurs in the beginning understand this, right? Because we're building a business. But in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, the business is you. And one of the things that I've helped a lot of CEOs with is you need to be able to leave for a month and
Mm-hmm.
your business grow and get better without you. And if you can't do that, or if that terrifies you, you don't actually have a business. You're self employed. So you're the boss of the business in theory, but it is not an entity separate from you. So it's the difference. I'll give you this analogy. Being self employed is like having three toddlers, and being having a business is like having three kids in college. They can function without you. Sometimes
And
they
I
have to.
think too, I think sometimes when what I've seen is the business owners who are doing it all, they're on the hamster work wheel. But there is, I think, and I don't know if the two of you would agree with me, but I think the other thing that comes into this is there is probably a greater fear of success
Mhm.
than failure.
Oh, yeah.
And I think sometimes we hold ourselves back, not consciously, but we
Correct.
do hold ourselves back by doing it all. By, you talked earlier, April, about, doing all these things and hiring these people and, working on the wrong end of the problem, instead of gathering the research and knowing what you're really going after. So does fear of success come into it?
So when you
100%.
say fear, what do you mean by fear of success? You mean fear of letting go? Like I'm not.
No, I think sometimes people are more afraid of being successful than of failing. They know what it feels like to fail. They're kind of comfortable with that.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I early on had a far greater fear of success than failure. I don't know why. I don't know if it's a deep-rooted childhood scarcity
Usually.
thing. And I think a lot of times these imposter syndrome or fear of whatever they are, I think they are very often, April, I imagine when you're working with your clients, sometimes you feel like Dr. April as opposed to, Coach April. So because you
Yeah.
can't separate, especially when you're talking about entrepreneurs and business owners, they are who they are at work and at home. So as
Mhm.
a consultant, we have to deal with all of them. And I do think fear of failure comes into it.
Oh, yeah. And to your point, fear of success. And people always say, so are you solving business problems or personal problems? I'm like, oh, it's always a personal thing that's impacting the
That,
business.
yeah.
100%.
Mhm.
And what you mentioned, Donna, is the biggest thing, and it's limiting beliefs, right? So the fear of success is really a limiting belief, and it is this, to your point, unconscious belief that if we get to a certain level of success, some big bad will happen. And again, it's not conscious. Gay Wakefield wrote a really great book that goes into this in more detail called The Big Leap. But basically, those fears are tied to things like being seen at a different level. Like, what bad thing will happen if I am much more public? Or am I really being disloyal to my family or my roots if I have huge success and a lot of money? Or, folks who grow up, whether it's regional, because a lot of clients I have from the Midwest have been taught that money is inherently bad, which
Exactly.
so far from the truth.
Wow.
It's an amplifier. If you're an asshole, before you have money, you'll be a bigger asshole. But if you're a good person and
But
you
you'll
use
also
your
get to
money,
be in your private jet being an asshole. So like,
yes.
oh.
If you're already good and you get money, it's a megaphone. It It is, you do more good in the world. So 100% to Donna's point, we can have these unconscious fears that drive us to play small, to hold ourselves back, to dawdle, if you will, or, do that hamster work so that we don't go to this bigger place. And it can be very difficult to identify this yourself. But what you'll notice is something that didn't used to be hard is now hard. Something you used to love to do, you don't love to do anymore. And if you really
Mm,
ignore this for a
mm.
while, your body will start to tell you. You're going to stub your toe, get a series of colds, break a leg, because our body is very in tune with what our mind and our heart want. So if we don't pay attention, it'll start throwing up red flags.
So what
So
does that
true.
mean? Like this is like fascinating to me. You guys like have this down. I'm like, what is happening right now? Okay. So what does that mean? Like you said what you just said, you're not enjoying what you used to enjoy, or like what does that mean?
It
What
means that
happened?
you're avoiding something. You're avoiding stepping into that next version of you, going to that next level. And you're
Mm,
doing it because of some unconscious fear. And it really requires digging into, okay, if this, then that. And
mm,
really understanding, okay, what are my limiting beliefs? What is it that I'm afraid of? And so if it happens to be in your business, I would literally write down, what are all my beliefs about my business? Just conscious stream of thought, write them down, but write them in pencil. And the reason is that you're going to find that a lot of them aren't true.
mm,
So after you've written those down, and this can be really emotional doing this exercise, but write down what all your beliefs are about this area where you feel like you have this resistance. And then go back in red pen after an hour, after whatever, and understand that as you write this down, you're gonna have resistance to doing this. Gonna be so many other things that you want to do.
mm,
But I want you to write in red, what is the truth? Because what you'll often find is that you have limiting beliefs about what success will do. My sister will hate me. I will be the
mm,
only one in my family that has moved away and it thinks I'm better than everyone else. I will never have time to do the things that actually matter to me. So you'll
mhm,
start to, because you're writing this down as like a stream of consciousness, uncover these fears you didn't even know you had. And then you can tell yourself in red, right, what the truth is. And here's what's interesting about the unconscious part of it. The way that our mind works is that a belief is just a thought we've thought over and over and over again, whether it's true or not. You could tell one of your kids, Rachel, that an apple is an orange. And as long as you kept telling them that and they kept
mhm,
telling themselves that, they would believe it. So
mhm,
by doing it this way, you give your unconscious mind an alternative, something else. And then take a couple days and at least 4 times a day, read over that so that your mind now has two options and can choose the one that's true. And when you can read over it and feel comfortable and good with the truth, erase those limiting beliefs. That's the best way I know of to do it when you're on your own and you don't have people to point
mhm.
it out to you.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good lesson. Now everybody has homework.
Yeah,
We
I
all have
always
learning
give
beliefs in
homework.
Fabulous.
It's
something, but
terrible.
it's
And you know what
crazy.
I think? I think there are different segments of entrepreneurs, and many entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs because, let's face it, they're kind of unemployable, right?
Ooh,
They
okay,
don't,
that's
they
a good
don't,
theory.
they don't
Okay.
follow directions. They didn't work well with others. And so I think some of these self-limiting beliefs are rooted in some of the reasons why people got started. So it's a tangled web. And I think your idea of writing it out, and I'm a big fan. I thoroughly believe thoughts become things. I mean, what you think is what is going to manifest itself. So April, great
Yes.
conversation. Loved the perspective and the tools that we can use to kind of move through some of this. So last question, and we're really running out of time, but if you could go back and do one thing differently, what would you do differently?
Not a damn thing, Donna.
I love it.
That's great. And why would you not change a damn thing?
Because everything I did, mistake, failure, and success, got me here, and I love here.
Yeah.
So I'm not
Mhm.
messing with it.
Awesome. April, thank you so much. We're so glad to
Awesome.
have you here today. How
I'm
can our audience
inspired.
reach you
Yeah.
and learn more about you?
My website, drivenoutcomes.com, has tons of information. I also have a podcast on winning mindset mastery, 10 minutes or less, that gives these kinds of exercises and these kinds of tools to help people get out of their own way and really have the life they want.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us. And so, Rachel, anything to add before we close?
I'm inspired, April. It was
I
awesome.
am inspired too. So
Thank you.
until next time, we hope that you embrace failing forward because it is part of the journey. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.